Blackstone itself and its employees are stepping in for the rest, which is somewhat of an escalation, somewhat stage two behavior all its own, because now the fund itself is having to step in to balance out so that it doesn't have to sell any assets. That's really the point of stage one. You got these outflows, and these fund managers and funds themselves are trying desperately to hold just to get through the next little while so they don't have to start selling assets, because the selling of the assets is where you not just get to stage two, but what stage two really means is where it gets to be so far that it affects markets and market pricing. So you have a lot of these difficulties, increasing difficulties for these funds that are trying to get through. And the important point here is Blackstone's $82 billion fund, 7.9% withdrawals. And the fund itself and its employees having to cover the last little bit of it because the tender offer isn't enough. And presumably they're not able to arrange, or at least on terms that they like, some form of bank financing or bank backstop. So this is significant escalation, even if it is mostly about stage one at this point. And we've talked about this before. Various people over the last couple of weeks, a lot of people have said pointed out the similarities 2007, 2008. It's not really about 2008 and repeating 2008. We're not going to see that level of crisis. However, human behavior, bubble patterns, bust patterns are basically the same thing. And so it's the behavior that we saw beforehand that we were reminded of last week with the latest cockroach MFS over the UK, how Wall Street had done no homework, and that there are all these hidden risks buried within the system because of the stupidity, the garbage lending, the dumb things, as Jamie Dimon called it last week.
Hello, this is Shanoa. Now, regarding your question, you want to know if everything between you and your ex is over, or if there will be a bigger connection coming soon. Nine of Pentacles shows the current state between the two of you. Both of you are left to yourselves right now. You're taking a moment to reflect and regather yourselves. Two of Wands being in the midpoint is rather fitting, since it shows that both of you are very soon approaching a point where you will feel like you can make a decision as to whether to try again with each other or not. You will both have options besides each other, but there will be something that draws both of you together again very soon, likely due to your shared history or a lingering affinity for each other. As for the further future, Two of Swords does show that both of you will still be in limbo with each other. Neither of you will really make a hard choice in either direction, but there will still be a lot of tension between the two of you. Overall, this would mean that there is a bigger connection coming for both of you, but it will still be filled with a lot of frustration, tension, anxiety, and just neither side really willing to take the next bold step forward with one another. So if you want more information on what the future holds between the two of you, as well as your compatibility with each other, you can give me a call or send me a message.
I don't really know how much space and time this little girl needs, but he's being a drama queen. And I don't know if you pick up on anything else that's happened after, but, you've seen the messages I sent her about, I'm going to get him to cheat on you and all this bullshit. Oh, I hope I caused fucking major damage yesterday. I don't think I did. Not with their relationship anyways. He's probably like, look, I blocked her off everything. Like, you have nothing to worry about. I'm never going to see her again. Blah, 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 whatever. Yeah, he hasn't reached out to me. I did send him a message, you know that, saying like, oh, I was drunk. I looked back to my messages to him and I did not sound drunk. So he probably knows I'm fucking full of shit. It's just so annoying because I embarrassed myself yesterday. He rejected me, but I did talk to another lady who, you know, I was in touch with before, and she said that
3 hours.
Jasmine had a lot of involvement with him blocking me yesterday, like off everything. And apparently she's very jealous and insecure, and she asked what I look like, and she knows what I look like. And I think she's just like, it made things even worse. I don't even know how that would have came up and what pictures he would have showed her, because all I know is I have pictures. He just has pictures of me and him together, like, unless he's saved other pictures, which I doubt. But I think he showed her the picture of him and me, and she's probably in her head. But she's a pretty girl too, so I don't understand that. But yeah, if you can pick up on anything from what I've told you just now, I'll be in touch with you in a few hours. Just send me a message back and let me know what you pick up based on everything I just told.
Apple versus Android. The blue bubble versus the green bubble. The battle every internet virgin loves to take, ladies and gentlemen. Now, if you ask me, I really don't care what phone you use. But as somebody that loves freedom and privacy, I will say that Android always used to be a lot better than having a gosh darn iPhone. You know, I always call iPhones Fisher Price phones because you're never really able to install what you want on this, unless, of course, the big friends over at Apple approve that you do. It's always one of the reasons why looking at Android devices like these, they're typically freedom phones because you can install whatever you want. You know, you can buy these phones and you can use them exactly the way that you want to without some asshole in Silicon Valley controlling what it is you do with your devices. Not anymore.
What she
says the man
do?
in Silicon Valley. And why is that, ladies and gentlemen? Well, remember about a year ago, typically in August, I was talking about Android phones. Why Google was actually on path to destroy Android. And they're actually still full headed towards that path, by the way. So for quick context, let me just go over exactly what happened. Last year, August of 2025, Android decided that they were going to add a new layer of security for Android phones. Now remember, this is billed as keeping you safe on the internet because apparently a lot of people install scam apps on their phone and get their entire shit stolen. And, my quick response to that is Android was never meant to be a safe product. It was meant to be a free product, okay? You do have to rub brain cells together. If you ever have people in your life that are too stupid to use cell phones or just install every app willy-nilly, may I consider getting them an Apple product instead? Because this actually does a pretty good job of locking you down. And I'm not trying to say this to be like super duper condescending. I'm just saying that if you know somebody that honestly cannot use a modern day device, they're just installing everything online and they click every pop-up ad, you might have to actually give them a lockdown device. Because if you don't do that, then shit like this happens.
Hello, this is Shanoa. Now, regarding your question, you're wanting to know which pathway you should choose. Going by your cards, it seems that the center card represents where you currently are. Nine of Pentacles being reversed shows that while you are in what was a comfortable position, you do feel like you want to branch out and do something new for yourself. But it seems like your choices would be the Devil in reverse, which represents taking on a much riskier endeavor, something that you feel like it could blow up in your face. So there is a lot of trepidation there, as opposed to what Seven of Wands is offering, which is something that is more secure, more stable. However, you do feel as though it would be holding you back to go down this path, that you wouldn't be fully satisfied, basically. As far as which pathway you should choose, I would say that it's leaning more towards Seven of Wands. So between the more stable choice or the riskier one, it really is more of a fact of a, oh my god, I totally got lost in the sauce. Hello, this is Shanoa. Now, regarding your question, you want to know which pathway you should choose. Going by your cards, your current position between those paths is represented by Nine of Pentacles. With it being reversed, it shows that while you are in a decent position right now, you do wish to branch out. So it's showing that you do have the desire to make something new for yourself, to make a choice. But those two decisions in particular seem wedged between the Devil and Seven of Wands. The Devil being reversed shows that you have one option in mind, but it's very risky. It can blow up in your face, but you do feel like the potential upside is substantial. And the other choice, Seven of Wands, is something that's more stable, something more by the books, but you do feel like it would kind of hold you back or that you wouldn't be fully satisfied in some ways. Since you're asking which pathway you should choose, going by the lean of the cards and my own sensibilities, I would say that you should go with the more consistent, stable option. However, I do think that if you're someone who often grows restless or finds themselves losing a lot of interest in something once the fun wanes, then you might be better off going ahead and taking the riskier choice. I don't think you should worry about failure so much, since you do have a lot of time to live off anything that happens. If you want further information about what's coming to you in the future, you can give me a call or send me a message.
Exactly 17 years ago, September 23rd, 2008, with Android 1.0, and it allowed people to have an alternative smartphone that, maybe was never as maybe it was never like iPhone exactly, but it was a very near one-to-one alternative. And there's always been the stigma that like Android for like poor people or something, and I always thought there was a really shitty stigma to that. Like, what a douchey way to put it out there. There's a lot of Android devices that are made for low-end markets, mid-end markets, high-end markets. Hell, the Android device that I have here, a Samsung Fold, costs substantially more than Apple's most expensive product too. And this is genuinely an impressive piece of tech. But one of the big advantages that this has is openness. It's free and open. You can install whatever you want on this. If you lock these devices down,
And you're still here?
you might as well just fucking buy an iPhone at that point. Because genuinely at this point, the software is a little smoother, the battery life's a lot better, and if I can't even install what I want, I might as well just go with the person that has the more accepting ecosystem in my side of the fucking world, And I'm crazy to think that Google apps, that every app always runs better on the iPhone as opposed to some of the applications on Android. So ultimately, what is really bad about verification? Why is it so bad? The problem is, having yourself be verified ties you to an online service like Google, so you're paying them money, you're verifying your identity. And the problem with verifying your identity is that you can't release applications that you genuinely would want because there might be fear of reprisal. And what do I mean by that? Imagine if you're making a privacy-focused tool like VPNs or Tor, and now you give your name up as a developer, so now you're basically doxxed to any government agency that could subpoena Google for that specific information if they want to find out who the app developer is. But imagine you're not a government, for instance, right? Let's say that you're somebody like Nintendo that literally 2 weeks ago licenseed every Switch emulator available. So for emulators like Eden, Citron, NGNX, Mellow NX, the people that produce still to this day the most up-to-date Nintendo Switch emulators, which I do use to play video games, and it's not because I don't have a Nintendo Switch, it's because emulating stuff on my Steam Deck and my PC with 60 frames, HD graphics pads, cheats, mods are infinitely better than just using my actual Nintendo Switch. And because I can use things like SyncThing, I can actually synchronize my saves across devices and back things up without paying for like Nintendo just on Nintendo devices. And ultimately, I love emulating games, the ultimate form of game preservation. Now, Nintendo argues that a lot of this is because these companies violate their copyright infringement.
What's happening right now, by the way?
Bypass technical measures to do emulation. I don't really fucking care about that.
Lamau.
I like emulators. I will always side with them. But the unfortunate reality is, if you're an Android developer producing Eden and distributing this application, you will now have to dox yourself. And a lot of those guys don't want to fucking dox themselves because if they did, Nintendo could subpoena that information and dox themselves. The other thing that really does suck about this like verification stuff too is that kind of think about it like this, right? When you buy an Android phone, you typically buy a device that you should own, right? If you want to wipe the operating system off these devices, you can't plug this into a computer and completely flash the operating system into something different. Something like Graphene OS, which is genuinely the most secure mobile operating system that I personally know. So that if you care about your privacy, which I do, I tend to do all of my really sensitive shit out of the Google Pixel with Graphene OS installed. That's just how I do. That's how I stay safe in a world that constantly has cyber attacks every day. But the other thing that really sucks about it is, like, imagine the analogy if you bought a laptop from like Dell, for instance, right? And Dell was like, you know, buy this XPS 16 laptop for $2,300. Imagine if, you know, we decide what we want to do with this device. And the reason I say that too, specifically, is people started to look closely at even Samsung devices. And they found out that with Samsung devices, this recovery menu, which is actually pretty standard for most Android phones, typically if you're powered off, you can hold the volume buttons, power button, you can access this to wipe your device, to flash your device. And when people started looking at an updated version of Samsung's operating system, they realized that this whole ability to be open and free suddenly just disappeared. Now you can only reboot your system, wipe the system, and power it off. Meaning that that device you bought that was free and open has suddenly become as restricted as an actual iPhone. And again, I bring up the laptop analogy because it's kind of similar to like Samsung, right? Like imagine if Dell told you, hey, instead of going into the boot menu or the actual BIOS, you can't install anything other than what we approved. So you can only install Windows, and
What's
that's
that?
pretty much it. Okay, your kids are installing Linux.
What's going on?
Not happening.
What are we doing
That
right now?
is a scary world, and I feel like it should be illegal, not just for computers and laptops, but also for the phones that you buy. Okay, now in a perfect world, if I could control it, Apple phones should be allowed for you to install Android, AOSP out of the box. You could buy an Apple phone and install Android on it if you really wanted to. But we don't live in that fucking world, okay? It's crazy shit. Now, when it comes to Android, obviously there's places like Android that exist as like an alternate store. You can download some of your applications. So again, with Android, you don't even need to have Google Play Store. There are other stores that you can go to for applications. And this is one of those stores. These are the guys that are keeping this Keep Android open going. Because if we lose this now, if we lose this movement, That basically
My
means
life.
Android is effectively about as gimped as an iPhone, in my opinion, of course. And at that point, genuinely speaking, why would you just not buy an iPhone? If Android wants to lock themselves as much as their actual competition over here, you might as well just go for the fucking competition. Because at least in my opinion, they produce a better quality phone just out of the box, a safer phone, in my opinion, at least. But, I don't want to just sit here and say buy an iPhone instead. I wish we didn't live in a world that Google wanted to lock shit down. Now, frankly speaking, the situation isn't totally over yet. There actually are mobile handset manufacturers like Motorola of all others that are coming out with a Graphene OS partnership, meaning that they're making a new era of smartphone security by working with the guys over at Graphene OS. And over here, the obvious implication is you don't even need to buy a Google Pixel anymore. There's a good chance that you can go to Motorola and purchase one of their future phones and just install Graphene OS out of the box into this device and actually be hella safe. And I think that's a cool way to look at it, because at least in Android, much like other operating systems in the Linux sphere, they can at least produce
It's on the
alternative
state.
there's at least hardware manufacturers that are releasing places where you can still keep Android free and still out of Google's clutches. But again, the problem with all of this is that how far will Google go to make sure that Android is locked down? Because again, when 90 to 95% of the market requires a certified Android device, installing all of these systems isn't always
Hello, this is Shanoa. Now, regarding your question, you want to know if the way you're feeling and the things you're thinking are real, or if it's just you being jealous. The star, being the primary card, represents that your mind is very active, and it does seem that you are generating some negative emotions, but it seems as though these are originally positive feelings, but because they don't have an outlet, they begin to sour and become negative. Five of Cups reinforces this since it's pointing to grief and disillusionment being the things that are causing this heavy cloud over you. Knight of Cups shows both what you're thinking about and what you hope for: true connection, romantic understanding, and someone really seeing you for who you are. Overall, I would say that most of what you're feeling is completely mental. I don't think that any of this is really physical. It's just internal issues, and I think that you should look into killing some time with a hobby or just talking to someone about what's going on. Because holding in a lot of mental energy can cause problems such as this. And I think if you do take some time to talk to someone about this, you'll find that it isn't really that bad in reality. If you want to talk in detail about what your thoughts are, what's happening, or if you want to know what the future holds for you, you can give me a call or send me a message. With a weirdo on this phone.
Hello, guys and gals. Me, Mudahar, and this is actually a little bit of a follow-up to a video that I made a couple days ago. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, it actually seems like they're kind of coming after Linux, ladies and gentlemen. They probably have read articles and probably read headlines that say a California law is targeting operating systems. Linux, by the way, to have that age of verifying crap. I know, again, it's always, it probably is infuriating to some of you watching, but I feel like it's important to kind of talk about this because we really have to explain how awful these laws are, and we really have to talk about the dystopian future so that people understand how bad it is, and that they vote against this kind of crap, and we end up having an internet that we still love. We end up owning computers that we still love 30 years down the road. Here's the reality. I'm going to die one day, okay? As so many people, that is the contract we signed the moment we draw our first breath. And that's fine. But I want to make sure that the world is as good as it was the moment I entered before I leave. That's just the mantra I live with in life. And sometimes, the older I get, the more I feel these videos are more important than just, goofy random shit. Anyways, to revisit this terrible California law over here, to give you an idea, this is Assembly Bill number 1043. Now, this bill targets, again, age-appropriate design code that requires a business to provide an online service product or feature likely to be accessible to children to do certain things like estimate the age of a child's user with a reasonable level of certainty appropriate that arise from the database practices. So basically, long story short, when it comes to things like application stores, which a lot of operating systems, like they mentioned here, have. Now, operating systems are basically things like iOS, things like Android, things like Microsoft Windows, things like Linux, things like macOS. Now, anytime you fire up any of these there are application stores built in. So, for instance, when you're using something like macOS, there is a Mac App Store built into the system. Yeah, you can download Macintosh applications off of the internet, but there are people that, for some reason, use the Mac App Store to download applications. It's weird and foreign to me, but some people do that. Now, if you have an iPhone or an Android phone, there's a good chance you probably download your apps through an app store. Now, a lot of these politicians think that computers, in a lot of cases, are kind of similar to this document. Now, to give you an idea of how Linux works, here is the Linux App Store built into my system, and this is called Discover. Now, Discover is not every distribution of Linux, but it is in my KDE-branded desktop environment, which, when it comes to Linux, you can always mix it with whatever the fuck you want. But here, you can see that, for instance, in this application store, I can go to all applications and download whatever I want. To give you an idea, Linux is so simple and easy. If I wanted to download things like an emulator, I go to the Steam section, go to emulators, and I can just download a whole slew of applications from here. And Linux is so simple that once you install all these things, you can update them like a traditional app store. But there is something interesting about the store right here. If you notice, there's no way for me to log in. There literally isn't even a login file for this, because you don't even need to make an account under Linux in order to do this. In fact, now, even when it comes to macOS or Windows, you don't need to make an internet account. Okay, there's no ways that you can get local accounts out there, for now at least. So these politicians don't really understand computers at a very fundamental level, at least the desktop computers that we buy. Now, here's the reality of the situation, too. I feel like a lot of people are totally okay with going forward. Nobody is going to protest with this because, unfortunately, not many people that I talk to in the real world, outside of all of this computer internet shit, some of these people don't even actually own desktop computers. Some of these people don't even own laptops. I myself know a few friends that just literally have smartphones. Anything I want to do, I can do on my smartphone. I have a guy at a friend's house. You guys can actually do your taxes through a phone now? And I was like, whoa, when's that audit coming in now? Because I want to fucking roll out the garden chair and watch that shit happen. But that's a reality. Some people are totally okay with having a completely locked down device. Some people have never even experienced a desktop computer where you can install things outside of an app store. That's the unfortunate reality. There's a whole generation of kids being raised that don't even know about the freedoms that you and I got to experience since the 90s on a computer. We are a dying old breed. Sad as that shit sounds, okay? Now, they say that an operating system or a covered store that makes a good faith effort to comply with this title takes into consideration available technology and any reasonable technical limitations and outages. And of course, they mention things like penalties primarily geared towards the actual company. So Microsoft, Apple, Google, so far in this case. Now, here's the thing. What they do talk about is an operating system should provide an accessible interface and account setup that requires an account holder to indicate the birthday, age, or vote. So I'm going to stop it right here. Here's where this is goofy and unenforceable. Okay, Okay, for Microsoft Windows, maybe when you're making a Microsoft account, not even a local account, that Microsoft account. When you're making an Apple iCloud account, sure. But there is no Linux distribution out there that actually gets you into doing this at all. In fact, in most cases, Linux, you can just build user accounts that are, again, local accounts on your system. So this is an unenforceable law. It's a poorly written law. Basically, what they're doing is they're saying that every operating system that I guess works in California or operates in California will now require you to provide your birthday. Now, you can enter any date that you want. I could say that I was born in January 1st, 1901. Now, is the computer going to think I'm over 100 fucking years old? Probably. Okay, that's what it's been told. And that basically operating system to issue a grant or a token that says this uses an adult or a kid. Now again, any child should lie about that. This is a side note. I mean, this is basically like going to an early 2000s porn website and being asked, are you an adult or are you a kid? The most base level of age verification you can find right there, and literally it only exists so that the company can't get sued for showing something untoward to a minor, right? That's all that it matters. So this is unfortunately how bad the law is, and there are people that have even reached out to the politicians, and the politicians will tell you, bro, the law is actually fucking stupid. I don't know what California is doing. Now, immediately I could sit down and say, okay, this is a bullshit law. They're making this just to fucking piss off the average person. It's a politician doing politician things. But it got my gears turning a little bit, right? And it made me really wonder what the future is that these guys want to achieve. Now, I always think that this is all about mass surveillance and control. And ultimately, I thought of the hardware pathway to do this, right? The computers that we buy at the store, and if you build your own computer specifically, you're buying what components? A motherboard to be part of your system. Now, when you buy a motherboard, the manufacturers you go to, are the manufacturers. They provide you all types of different motherboards, from like entry level to the super high level. Now, of course, when you fire up your system, you typically see the manufacturer logo on your screen for a brief second, and usually the computer will ask, press F2 or delete to access the BIOS settings. Now, inside the BIOS settings, there's something known as Secure Boot. Now, if you don't know what Secure Boot is something that is basically a standard, and it's been sort of a standard for a while. In fact, for certain games like Battlefield 6, not only do these games have kernel-level anti-cheat, but they also require you to have Secure Boot and PPMs enabled on the device. Now, Secure Boot is an interesting piece of technology, and I feel like not many people explain it in the best way possible. So the best way to describe things like Secure Boot in the situation is when you hit the power button on your computer, before the operating system actually ever loads, the motherboard's firmware actually loads in a list of what they call signatures, right? Now, at this point, is the bootloader that you're going to call signed by somebody that is approved in those signatures, right? If the bootloader is not, it refuses to boot. But if the bootloader is signed and validated, then it proceeds forward. And at that point, the bootloader will then proceed with the rest of the boot up process. Now, the reality of these keys is that out of every single box that you get, almost every consumer motherboard you buy is preloaded with Microsoft's keys at the time, because Microsoft is the dominant operating system at the moment. Now, of course, Microsoft, when you install Windows, you don't really have to think about it. Secure Boot is usually just enabled by default. In fact, if you buy a gaming motherboard, you probably have all of these features enabled, and you can
I feel like the bed is getting deeper.
Now, like Linux, for instance, it works through something known as a shim. So Microsoft signs this shim, and the shim basically trusts the distribution key for Linux. The distro key then trusts things like the kernel, and then of course Microsoft is basically the trust for that shim. The shim vouches for the actual OS you boot, and you get into your system. So it's a complicated process of basically just having trust and verification. Now, anyways, long story aside, one of the ways that I kind of see California, or at least the rest of the world, kind of doing this is maybe going out of their way to look at the computers that we buy. Think about all the computer vendors right now. Things like RAM, hard drives, anything that you want is basically expensive. There are actual hardware manufacturers that are going fucking bankrupt right now. And I feel like for a lot of these government leaders, going and implementing laws where we're forced into going down and purchasing from like a vendor that now, possibly in the future, I'm not saying that it could happen, but possibly in the future.
Hello, this is Shanoa. Now, regarding your question, you want to know if this person is going to reach out to you or will he reach out to you soon? So, you're wanting to know if he's going to. Hello, this is Shanoa. Now, regarding your question, you want to know if this person will reach out to you soon. Hello, this is Shanoa. Now, regarding your question, you want to know if this person will reach out to you soon or will he message you eventually sometime in this month of March? Going by your cards, Two of Pentacles being reversed and in the primary position represents you right now. It does seem like you're trying to juggle a lot of things. It seems like you're trying to hold on for something. That thing in particular seems to be represented in Knight of Pentacles, which is some sort of messaging, some sort of good tidings or good news that would benefit you, something that brings you comfort, understanding, security. King of Swords being in the final position and reversed shows that there is something leaning towards positive coming to you through this person. So it does show that they're making plans to message you, but it does seem like it will be delayed. Since you were asking about the timing, this would indicate that it's going to come very late in March, if not April. So I would expect this person to message you in very late March going into April. Now, if you want further details about what to expect from this person when they contact you, as well as other things regarding your situation, you can give me a call or send me a message.
Want our information and want us to be locked down in a way where we really aren't allowed to freely express our minds or really use the shit that we buy. Remember, these are the same politicians like Gavin Newsom, for instance, who literally would tell you during COVID to stay locked down in your home, but at the same time, they have their own parties where they expose God knows how many people to the coronavirus, right? So remember, rules for thee, not for me. And if you think that politicians are going to be abiding by the same laws where they're going to be using lockdown shit, don't even think of it like that. Because when it comes to these kind of releases, when it comes to these kind of products, I really see that in the future there's going to be like a two-tier market, right? Kind of similar to what we have now with certain risky purchases, right? Like when you buy a casual computer, when you buy a consumer-grade computer, you probably will have to buy something that is ultimately very locked down from the store. As opposed to if you're a big business like Walmart or like a defense contractor or any just big corporation, you will get a different, set of enterprise hardware to go buy. And that'll probably create like a black market of people who use old hardware until ultimately they can't, simply because the technology evolves to a point that you need to eventually upgrade. I thought I had fatty liver disease, but it's actually. It's such a dystopian future that is upon us that the reason I'm talking about it is that ultimately, for anybody that doesn't understand how any of this shit works, you are on the way to being pulled into a dystopian future without even realizing it. So I know that what I'm saying sounds like a real complicated mess. And it sounds like I'm just sort of jumping between technical jargon and technical jargon. But that's what it is. We are literally talking about guts of your computer think and tick in the morning. There are alternatives too, like Reboot, for instance, which is an open source replacement for the BIOS Unix 5. There's also Reboot, which is actually even more open source and it's liberated from actual, proprietary laws. But in order to install this kind of shit, you need to have the hardware vendors that support it. And ultimately, that's a tough game to be in right now. I think that there's a lot of things happening right now that are positioning the world into a very, it's sort of an interesting corral in a controlled future. And that needs to be addressed. We need to kind of wake up to that. We need to kind of stop realizing and we need to smell the coffee and be able to fight that shit right where it ends. Because I think where we're at right now with the hardware that we have control for now. But I think that ultimately the end goal for some of these politicians, and honestly a lot of these big tech companies, is to guide us into hardware that ultimately is locked down, completely tied to their own commercial interests, and eventually will require us to keep purchasing more and more of their hardware. Maybe eventually get to a point where we just rent computers instead of actually owning the shit that we have. You know, when I watch like cyberpunk movies, you know what's funny is like I always see people who are on the fringe outskirts of the system, and they're always driving shitty cars or using like 20-year-old tech, and it makes sense, right? Because the modern tech is so locked down that for anybody that actually wants real freedom, real like detachment from the surveillance engine, they have to actually buy really old shit. Is that the future we're headed to? I hope not. But the only way to avoid it is that people realize that laws like these exist, and even if they're unenforceable, right? I wouldn't be making this video if this was a joke law. Even if it's unenforceable now, remember, the politicians and the people pushing for this are going to look at the next stage of how they evolve this even further, right? And I think ultimately there is a group of individuals that want us to have lockdown computers, lockdown hardware, lockdown software, lockdown everything, so that we really don't have the option to escape the system. We just have to reside within it and spend God knows more money over time. It's already getting expensive to purchase and build out a computer. I feel like the next stage is to rent the system and honestly control exactly what you can and cannot install on the system anyways, right? It's insane to me that there exists software these days, people who are totally okay with an approved vendor list for what software you can install. In a normal world, an iPhone would allow you to sideload any application you want without a second thought. But we don't live in that world, okay? We live in a world where a new generation is being raised and conditioned into thinking that this is acceptable and freedom is. That's really the future of it. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I know long technical diatribe aside, but I truly think that Linux is kind of being targeted. And while for now things do seem free and open, these politicians are not going to ignore the fact that Linux exists. They're not going to ignore the fact that the open source market exists. They're not going to ignore the fact that people have access to real freedom for now. That, I think, is going to be the push going forward. And the more people realize that, the more people can fight against it and actually vote people in that are going to fight against this on your behalf. You have a chance right now to fully fight back. But if you don't fight back, then, brother, in 10 years, when shit really changes, you won't have that option, okay? Once the frog has been boiled, it is dead, it is done, and it is all dusted. Ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Minamon, and whatever yourself, like, comment, subscribe, just like this, like,
Stop managing paperwork and start changing lives. Meet Caseway, the purpose-built platform for human services. From intake to reporting, access your case data securely on any device, anywhere. Casewell Human Services evolved.
I'll have another. Make it a double.
Dad, Mom thinks she's at a resort again.
Yeah, she told me.
Wouldn't you rather not resort to a virtual resort? This is much better in real life. It matters where you stay. Book your spring break now. This for the stay.
Can't go there. Ooh, I love these. The one right to let the prettier it gets. Oh, I'm gonna sit this one up. It tastes so good.
Golf is always an endless pursuit of trying to figure the game out. I've always looked for my preparation. I'm very particular in how my equipment needs to perform. You have to keep evolving. evolving. You have to keep adapting. You have to keep trying to get better because if you sit still, you're going to get past body. Getting on top is difficult. Staying on top is harder. To truly innovate, you have to take on risk. You have to have the courage to take on a new future, knowing there's a chance that you do fail. I'm not so sure if this story is ever told publicly before. I've always had a profound passion for golf equipment. I grew up playing TaylorMade, and so I can tell a story about every single one of them. This company was founded in 1979. The company was born under a new technology called metal. The first driver was called the original one. The other leader, using an iron or is it metal wood? The standard in the birthright of the company wasn't simply to innovate and bring a new technology. If that technology didn't optimize performance, we wouldn't do it. This drive being one driver saved our company. Back in 2015, we were struggling. This driver, the first thermally compressed carbon crown and a titanium body, reestablished TaylorMade as the technology leader in drivers, period. Nobody could build a product of this stature and performance and ultimately mass produce it so players of all skill level can get into it. Then there was the generation of SIM technology, this canted airflow, where we were actually researching aerodynamics, but SIM 2 really built upon the momentum of SIM 1 with the new first carbon ever done. And 5 years later, we show up with Stealth, first of its kind with carbon-based technologies. It was number one in the marketplace. Then we had a hiccup when we got to Stealth 2. That was painful. It was painful for me. It was painful for the entire organization. And it was the first time we had to deal with true adversity around a product quality issue in our company in a couple of decades. And the reason we got there was because we were pushing so hard to get better. We pushed too far. We haven't had it perfect every year, but we try to strive for perfection in everything we do because we have to meet this standard. We truly have to meet this standard. If our products don't work, then they don't come to market. As you know, for all these years, I don't put something in the bag unless it's better than what I was currently playing. Last year was a little bit tricky where we had a lot of market success in QI35, but some of our top 50 athletes really didn't put it in play. We couldn't show them something better than what they were playing previously, and so there's definitely some added pressure.
We build them in CAD that are done to the 10th of a millimeter, to the 10th of a degree, because we want to make sure that what we give to our consumer is what we're designing and simulating here.
We're having a moment right now where for the past 5 years we've been working on the advancements that are now showing up in the QI40 driver. Our mission was very clear. We challenged our team to build the fastest and most suitable driver technology in the history of our company and the game of golf. QI40 stands for 4 dimensions of speed. The first dimension is the face. The goal is to make more speed without giving up the limits on both their strengths. This year we have a new goal on the face to create more spin consistency. The downrange shots are where they're supposed to be, even on misses. Pushing the performance of the face has been our goal for the last year. Looks like there's a little bit of cracking. Yeah, interesting. It's cracking here and not towards the front, and then also coming in the back. It looks like the action point is here.
Asus has had several significant vulnerabilities on its software and its hardware over the last several months. These are all kind of popping up at the same time. It's something you need to be aware of if you use any of their devices, or you might use some of it, or their software. And this includes a hardware constraint. Surely nobody could have ever foreseen this as a problem. I mean, basically everyone foresaw it was a problem, but
Asus continues to push it anyway, but that's not alone. There are other exploits we're talking about today, including one for the RMA system, which potentially can expose millions of customer records if it has been exploited, and there's still active research going on Asus.
Hello, this is Shanoa. Now, regarding your question, you want to know if Alexis regrets leaving you and will she come back? The Chariot, being the primary card, represents that she did seem to leave you in a rather erratic way, a very emotional manner, and that it didn't really have a lot of direction. Two of Pentacles being reversed shows that she does still seem to be juggling a lot of desires on her end. It seems as though she wanted one thing, but finds herself a little conflicted about why she even left you in the first place. Ace of Wands is probably the most important card for this situation. It indicates that she still has attraction towards you, and seeing as she did leave you in such an energetic manner, it does suggest that she will come back around. So I would expect her to most likely message you to test the waters, and then things could progress from there depending on where you both are. If you want further information about what to expect from Alexis, as well as anything ranging from your compatibility with her to other options that might show up for you romantically, you can give me a call or send me a message. What the fuck is that? I hate it when my shit drops. Where are you?
Something, other effective devices. And fittingly for this, I've worn our Honey Pot t-shirts. These are in-stock charity shirts we are donating to profit to archive.org, the Transit Institute, the Waste Recycling and Nuclear Refurbishing, and the Public Interest Research Group. Archive, especially here, getting some significant accolades for its ability to preserve the internet so that we and others can do reporting. But if you want to grab one of the shirts to support these research directly, you go to store.camersexes.net, and they also come with a card. And the playing card is a foil broken honey pot, which hopefully will be representative of what happens here. Now, we'll run through each of these and light them today. Disney Plus Hulu has the drama you want.
What's going to be possible? It's a huge opportunity.
The drama you want on Disney Plus Hulu.
Dreaming of the perfect family trip?
Who are you?
Penny, Priceline's AI travel assistant.
How about Eco Resort, free breakfast, zip line?
Done.
One, ready, go! Now or never. Ready, player two wins. Three, ready,
I'm not wrong with that. I'm not keeping it.
One of my favorite things to do is to buy weird.
If you feel like you're on the wrong road with your finances, Credit Karma can help you push through to a better place. With personalized
It's
guidance,
like
support for
did
your
it
credit,
back in
savings,
the day.
taxes, and more, so you can find your way to money. Intuit Credit Karma, karma you can count on.
One-a-day women's multis are made for your overall health, with nutrients for immunity and energy. So you never miss a beat. One a day, the one for you.
One of my favorite things to do is to buy weird devices and see if I can find vulnerabilities in them. You know, typically embedded devices tend to have the worst security, so it's kind of a fun exercise in bug hunting. Now, what I want to show you today is the story of how I found several egregious vulnerabilities in this device here on Temu. You know, it's kind of fun. Go on Temu, you buy a $5 device, and you see what you can do. Now, I want to highlight here that this not only was $30, and now it's only $5, 84% savings, but also it is the #1 best-selling item on Temu in Wi-Fi and networking with over 100,000 sold. So from a general security of the world perspective, not a great place to be. In this video, we're going to go into how I took the device apart, opened the firmware, and found some pretty egregious issues. And watch as my hair grows and I change my shirt. So when you plug in this device and you navigate to the IP address for that thing, you'll see this interface. Now, a bad habit that I typically have when I audit a new weird embedded device is I typically try to put this little one-liner in here, and you'll see why this is bad. So what I'm attempting here is, my assumption is that it's a piece of trash embedded device, and they're just passing this Wi-Fi password parameter to a system call, and they're not sanitizing the input. A way that I can quickly validate that without pulling any of the firmware out of the device is by doing a reboot command injection. By putting the $ in these two brackets, it's a command injection, which means that it'll run an arbitrary system command if it's vulnerable, and the system command that I want to run is reboot. Now, what you'll see here is I go to restart the device, which is intentional, right? I've set the properties of the device, but we'll see here after a couple refreshes that it does not come back to life. What this means is I have rebooted the device in NVRAM. I put the password of the device in NVRAM, and then every time it tries to come back up, it's pulling that password out from NVRAM and triggering a vulnerability, rebooting it. I have now soft bricked the device. But what's good about this, this actually led me to the next piece of the puzzle, which helped me get the firmware out of the device on accident. Now, when I typically do this to a device, what I like to do is go to the device and hold the reset button. If you hold it for long enough, what that typically does is it tells the device, hey, I want to reset at factory settings. And that will typically erase the malicious NVRAM that I put in there, and it should undo the soft brick that I did. When I was doing this myself, I held the reset button for 60 seconds, and this popped up. Now, you will notice that the IP address here changed. I had to kind of fight with it to get it to respond to me. I had to look in Wireshark to see if I was getting any like random broadcast from a new IP address. But eventually, I got to this Breed web interface that showed a fairly low-level diagnostic of the board. It looks like the build date and like the git commit of the server or the software, as well as the CPU and like the firmware on the thing. But if you do a quick little Chinese to English translation here, the one thing that caught my eye as a vulnerability researcher is firmware backup. Now, to me, this meant one of two things. Either I was able to upload new firmware, which is good, or I was able to download the firmware, which is even better. And luckily, if I press the programmer firmware button, I can download the entire system, full.bin. You'll see I've done this other times for previous takes of the video. But I'm able to download the firmware for the device, which is great. A lot of the times that you have to do is like desolder a chip off the board, for example, like maybe like a flash chip like one of these, and then put it into a flash reader. Maybe there's some weird like locking going on. The ability to just download the firmware automatically like this is super cool. So what we can actually do now is go into our downloads here. Let's go to downloads. And we can do a little bin walk recursive extraction of full2.bin. And what we should get at a certain level is the file system for the device. Typically, these things contain file systems. So if I go into extractions here, and I go to the Squash and Fest root.
Still dealing with moderate to severe ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease symptoms despite treatment? Put them in check with Rinvoq. Rinvoq works differently, and it's a once daily pill.
When symptoms try to take control, I got rapid relief with Rinvoq. Check.
Rinvoq helped visibly repair my intestinal lining. Check.
I got lasting steroid-free remission with Rinvoq. Check.
Rapid symptom relief. visible repair of the intestinal lining.
And lasting steroid-free remission. Check, check, and check.
Rinvoq can lower ability to fight infections. Before treatment, test for TB and do blood work. Serious infections, blood clots, some fatal. Cancers including lymphoma and skin. Serious allergic reactions, GI tears, death, heart attack, and stroke occur. CV event risk increases in age 50 plus with a heart disease risk factor. Tell your doctor if you've had these events, infections, Hep B or C, smoke, are pregnant or planning. Don't take it allergic or have an infection. Put UC and Crohn's in check and keep them there with Rinvoq.
Ask your gastroenterologist about Rinvoq and learn how AbbVie can help you save. I now have the entire file system for the device. This is great. Now, after resetting the device, going to get back to its normal configuration, doing it back to the reset, I'm back into the device. So now the question is, like, where do we go from here? We have the firmware over here on this tab, and I have, like, the web interface on this tab. And when we're doing research on this thing, what do we do? Well, what I'm interested in is vulnerabilities that arise from a user sending data to a server somewhere and there being a vulnerability in that server. The server we have access to right now is the web server. So let's see if we can identify maybe some methods that we can use to trace in the firmware where this data is processed. Typically, I like to go to the network tab. When I reload a page, I see, like, are there any strings that pop out as something that may be custom or something that may be interesting? The first thing you may see, very obviously, pretty quickly, is this post request to this protocol.csp. Fname equals net, option equals wizard config. There's a bunch of, it looks like, custom stuff going to this protocol.csp function. So what I'm going to do now is go into the root directory and just grep around for protocol.csp. Maybe there's a binary name to this. And pretty quickly, we see that we have an Etsy lady proxy.com. And we can see what's going on in here. So what this means is that every request that goes to this protocol.csp, we go to an internal port 81. Interesting. That's not super interesting, though, because I don't really know right now what port 81. So let's see if there. And on the right, we have the decompilation. Decompilation is either the best guess for the device. And zoom in a little bit here to make it bigger for you guys. And so what you do now is figure out, okay, do these parameters and get parsed. Any either other hidden features like backdoors or vulnerabilities in this program. Now,
Reset the damn.
Time level. Now, this is a wrapper for system, so what we could assume is that this is going to properly sanitize the input, but like any good hacker, we're going to test that assumption, right? So what we can do to test this is literally just write the command ourselves. So curl 192.168.11.1 protocol.csp. It was fname equals net from that first request here. We want to do an opt equals time comp, and the time is equal to, let's do garbage right now. And there was some random math variable that maybe like their bad attempt at a CSRF or like a siege. We're going to steal that right now. And then the function is equal to, it was get, right? I did some more reading, and it does a compare on get or set, and it's going to return that. And we have to actually be doing a set operation to get into this function, right? So what we can do is do set for this. I'm going to wrap this in a single quote because I want to do a command injection at some point, and I don't want to command inject myself. And you'll see that it says set error equal to 0, which means that we set the date equal to ASDF. What we can do now is actually test, does our command injection work? Do we have the ability to run arbitrary commands through just using a simple reboot? And you'll see first it says error 0, and the second time the command hangs because the device has rebooted, right? We have turned the device on and off, and now we can no longer connect to the device. So we can run arbitrary commands on this device. So that's not cool enough. We want to get a shell on this device. I want to have access to this device via the command line. So what can we do? So going back to our firmware image here, we can see all of the binaries that are on the device. And you'll see pretty quickly that we have the lovely telnet D. So user sbin telnet D is a binary that we can use to basically run any other binary on any other port, right? Assuming there are no firewalls in place. And so what we can do to mess with that guy is, first of all, I got to reset my network interface. And then now we can update our exploit to actually set up the right thing. What I want to do is user sbin telnet D. So first of all, we're putting this IFS separator to emulate a space on the device. But sometimes in HTTP, the spaces will get escaped weirdly. We want to do -p IFS on port 4444, and then we want to set the login binary to the bin hash. I believe is the shell we have. So now if I do netcat 192.168.111.4444, I don't have a shell. Okay, I'll drag it. Hold on. Before we do that, though, I want to get a little more insight into what's actually going on the device. Like, what is the process list? What does the environment look like? Luckily, we have command execution on the device, and we can run those commands. There's just nowhere to really put that data. Well, sort of. If we actually go to the file system here, we're going to go to the config file for etc Lighty. We're going to cat the Lighty config. You'll see that we're actually serving data from the webs directory for this device. So there are two instances running of this. You'll see that we have one of them is a writable folder that's called /webs. Let's see if I can find it here. Do this and grab the webs real quick. So server document root for this instance of Lighty is called /webs. What we can actually do now is run this cute little thing where we do ps, and we just take the process list and write it to web/he. And because that's the document root for our server, now we can just curl he, and bada bing, bada boom, we get the process list. So we can see a bunch of stuff going on. We can see that we have the Lighty running with that instance of the config that gives us access to the web folder. We have a Dropbear server. We have Telnet running. What I want to run, though, is my own version of the Telnet server. I want to get in there, and I want to, run my Telnet server to give me a shell on the device. Now, after a while, I was messing with this curl command that uses the command injection to run telnet D. And with telnet D, you can specify a port number and a login program to use in place of bin login. And if you can just set bin sh, you can use that as basically a bind shell. Now, the problem is I had a couple issues where it would run, but it didn't actually run the command. I think something is either wrong with telnet D, where it doesn't allow for IFS, or there's some issue with this. But what I did find after a little bit of searching is a nice little program on the device that's called /webs/cgibin/upload.cgi, which is what you're using to actually upload a temporary piece of firmware before you do a firmware update on the device. The reason I know this is if I'm doing a simple strings on the device or on the upload.cgi, you'll see that it writes the file out to temp firmware. And so you can actually use curl to do a file upload using the exact process they use, this multi-part form data, by doing file equals at and then the name of the file, right? So you can literally do that and point it to that URL, and in doing that, you will get upload.cgi to ingest the script and put it on temp firmware. And what you can actually see here is if we do a ls of temp and we get hehe, you will see that this temp firmware file actually exists now. It's now on the device, which is crazy. So now all we have to do is do a little bit of a command plus X to make the file executable. Do a command plus exit, and we'll do just the temp firmware run. We're going to run the temp firmware file, which has a script. Oh, I didn't show you the script. The script that I wrote, by the way, is script.sh, which literally just enables the telnet-d server as I want it to run, right? So it runs a script as bin-ash, and it runs user fbin telnet-d bin-ash 4444. And you can see this all works together if we simply just go here and do a little netcat 192.168.111.4444.
Oh my God, bro.
Bada boom, we're rude, baby. So VR, guys, this is the world of acquiring weird little devices off of Temu, taking them apart and seeing what issues we can find. Let's talk responsible disclosure, right? I have tried very hard to identify what company makes this device. I cannot ID one, so this is a bug that I could not find anyone to tell about. Now I'm telling you guys. Okay, awesome. All right, guys, if you enjoyed this, do me a favor, go check out Stack Smash. It's my community where I teach people how to do stuff like this to not only figure out how to hack, how to make the world a safer place for software security. And if you like this channel, then hit that sub button over there. It's right, it's down there somewhere. We'll see you in the next one. Take care. Goodbye.
Is the complexity of your software slowing down your team's productivity? Exivian Architecture Verification. Automated software architecture checks to help you understand and manage code complexity. As new functionalities are built over time, complexity, development time, and error rates exponentially grow. Exivian automated architecture checks empower you to control this complexity and develop high-quality software. Identify hidden vulnerabilities and architecture violations to speed up or eliminate the need for save up to 10% of your development costs and significantly improve your team's go-to-market time. The benefits to your team are significant. Developers get real-time feedback and can ensure.
Hello, this is Shanoa. Now, regarding your question, you want to know if Ernest will call tomorrow. Going by your cards, Strength being the first card and in the reverse position shows that Ernest has required some time to himself before he could really reach out to you. But now it seems that that period has passed due to the appearance of Three of Cups in the center position. It does show that Ernest does wish to connect with you and possibly make plans with you going off of the final card, King of Pentacles. So it does seem that something's come to his attention and he would like to get together with you on some sort of event or activity. So going off of that, I would believe that he will in fact call you tomorrow. Now, if you want further information regarding what to expect from him in terms of whatever this activity is, or if you want to know anything ranging from your compatibility with him to what other issues might come up between the two of you, you can give me a call or send me a message.
My dream was the Olympics. I dedicated my life multiple times to try to make that dream a reality. First started off in gymnastics, then track and field, and then when this box opportunity presented itself, it just really felt like this was my purpose. The second we get to the track, we are in straight sliding mode, and that looks like trying to balance being an athlete, a sled mover, a mechanic, just all those hats. We're actually not doing a program anymore. We ran out of time. Yeah, my warm-up is the most important part of the day. I think that the warm-up is what really puts my mental headspace in the space ready to hurl myself down this mountain at like 85 miles an hour. My last workout of the day is a weightlifting workout. Just trying to stay healthy and making sure that my body is at its absolute prime and ready to perform every day is one of my favorite things. I think the Honda Power's dream is by just believing in the team. My sled takes 3 people to move it. The reality is there were 2 other people who prepped, polished, and got a sled that they weren't competing in ready. So sometimes on race day, the first time I see my sled is at the start line. And that level of selflessness and that level of just teamwork is really empowering for me. But I also recognize that these girls bust their butts, right? And so to be able to be at that start line with your teammate as we're getting ready, it's really empowering. Like you can like conquer the world, whether we win, crash, take last, whatever the result is. It's really nice knowing that you have someone next to you who understands.
No.
Really just has your back.
I always scoff when companies start to wonder, why do people hate AI, as if they're ignorant to all the complaints surrounding its harmful nature when it comes to the environment, how much power and water it consumes, all of the ways in which it's been negatively impacting society with all the misinformation and deep fakes that have been spreading, the way it's been stealing art, the way the AI technology has ultimately given companies permission to make a lot of compromises and roll out stuff with lower quality output, all while replacing humans and whatnot. And then there's the aspect of things that are like directly impacting consumers right now, namely the way that AI has essentially hoarded all of the RAM, and that has paved the road to low supplies of computer components such as RAM, SSDs, GPUs, alongside their inflation. And NVIDIA is a company that is not helping on that front. The way they've decided is basically one of the largest manufacturers of consumer electronics, namely GPUs, to put all their eggs in the AI basket and leave very little for the consumers who made them what they are today. You might wake up today to discover headlines like these across the web. NVIDIA won't release a new graphics card this year as it focuses on AI. Or breaking, NVIDIA will pause new gaming GPU releases in 2026 due to the global memory chip shortage. And of course, here is the information who kind of broke the story. NVIDIA to delay new gaming chip due to memory chip shortage. So it's not just that AI companies are hoarding up all of the RAM and all of the computing components. The manufacturers of computing components are seeing how lucrative the business is to just sell their stuff to these AI companies and their data centers instead of consumers, and are taking advantage of that and screwing consumers along the way, which, yeah, it is generating record revenue for these companies, but it is completely tanking their reputation. NewsHour with The Verge kind of broke down all the details that NewsHour information reported, with that article being fully paywalled, and now will do a summary of everything that was reported here. So The Verge reports that in December, NVIDIA managers decided not to release the new cards as scheduled, choosing to prioritize AI chips instead due to the limited supply of RAM currently available. On top of that, quote, NVIDIA is also slashing production of its current line of gaming chips, the RTX 50 series. And the reason behind this shouldn't come as any surprise. Corporations ultimately just follow the money. And with NVIDIA having seen record-breaking revenue due to its focus on AI chips, the end result has been that data center revenue for NVIDIA made up $51.2 billion after $57 billion NVIDIA reported in its quarter 3 2026 earnings, while gaming revenue was also up 50% during that same period and makes up a much smaller slice of the pie than it used to. It's just easier for NVIDIA as a business to sell their GPUs and their chips in bulk to AI data centers than to sell them to individual customers. There's also an element of because AI companies have hoarded all the it means that NVIDIA and similar companies have to work with them.
Oh my God, bro.
In order to be able to make those GPUs, and then those GPUs have to be tailor-made for AI, because that's the reason that we're able to afford it. At the same time, NVIDIA is like all in commitment to AI and their complete dismissal of consumer end of things. You know, that only contributes to this whole situation. Only adds fuel to the fire instead of diffusing a situation that really screws over consumers. I think one thing, if the supply of GPUs was going towards a good cause, but you can hardly call, you know, OpenAI and ChatGPT and all their AI systems a good cause. A stark contrast from the sponsor of today's video, Grooms, which is a comprehensive nutrition-focused formula made into a daily snack pack of delicious gummy bears. This isn't just like a multivitamin, greens gummy, or prebiotic. It's all those things and then some at a fraction of the price, while also tasting really good. Someone has a really busy schedule on a daily basis, so it's really difficult to keep up with nutrition sometimes, and that's where Grooms comes in. One pack of these just kind of covers it all. You break it open, eat one, and they're actually like really delicious. Yeah. Your traditional multivitamin usually only has like 7 to 9 vitamins, but one pack of these has over 20 vitamins and minerals, as well as over 60 ingredients that are full of nutrients and whole foods. Focus being to improve your gut health, your energy, immunity, recovery, beauty, and cognition. One pack of these contains 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is 3 times the amount of dietary fiber compared to the leading greens powders, and more than 2 cups of broccoli. This formula also contains biotin and nicotinamide, which supports thicker hair, nails, and skin health. It contains super mushrooms, which promote brain and gut health, while also supporting whole body health. Vitamin C, which reduces immunity damaging, stress-inducing free radicals. And on top of all that, this is vegan. It's a packaging-based, not gelatin. It's nut-free, gluten-free, dairy-free, no synthetic sweeteners or dyes. It's not you get to eat something that is a little like a snack, like a treat, that is just so beneficial in what it offers for your health. And on top of that, there are versions of it that are low sugar as well as sugar-free, which is what I got right here. So you got even more interesting. So healthier habits and nutrition is part of your New Year resolution for 2026. Grooms is perfect for you. And you can use my link in the description comment section below, which allows you to get 52% off your first order. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. NVIDIA is not contributing to a technology that is proven to be more beneficial than detrimental. It's the other way around. They're all just slot machines that, at best, makes it somewhat convenient to search for certain things, but at worst, you know, it does everything that I've mentioned before. It harms the environment, takes up too much power, it produces misinformation, it can do deep fakes, it can fuck over a lot of people, it steals art, it outputs worse art that is just an amalgam of stolen art, and all the while, all of this is the reason for why NVIDIA decided to screw over consumers, why RAM prices and GPU prices, and now CPU prices, even if consumer reports recently are going up. Like, it's already bad enough that DRAM shortage was a thing, but then for NVIDIA to like intentionally contribute to the shortage of other computing components.
Oh my God.
To, you know, a lot of consumers' electronic uses. There's a complete lack of consideration that has been influence that NVIDIA has for consumers, and a complete lack of responsibility for, you know, how big of a player they are in the consumer market. It's just like an incredibly selfish believer, and all the while, this endeavor, investment, billions of dollars worth of NVIDIA's making OpenAI is a lot of trouble that's reported in videos discussing OpenAI's particular financial situation. So yeah, the bottom line for NVIDIA is in GPU launch from NVIDIA scheduled for this year. It could push back the next generation part. The RTX 60 series was originally scheduled to begin mass production at the end of 2027, and pushing that back to set it into 2028 or even later. So not only are they reducing the supply of consumer GPUs of existing generations of those GPUs, but they're also delaying future generation GPUs for consumers in order to acquiesce AI data centers, specifically OpenAI. All this technology that not only proven to be more detrimental than beneficial to society in its direct implementation, but all for a business venture that is currently seeming like a sinking ship. Even NVIDIA itself has shown hesitation surrounding OpenAI, with initially having planned to invest up to $100 billion in this company back in September of 2025, only for them to later change their mind, as reported here on January 30th, 2026, and deciding to put this $100 billion deal on ice. With Reuters reporting that internally, Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, privately criticized what he described as a lack of discipline in OpenAI's business. Public facing, of course, he insists that reports saying that NVIDIA is unhappy with OpenAI, it's all nonsense and just like pays tribute to OpenAI, how consequential they are, and how they still want to invest a lot of money in OpenAI. So the fact that Jensen Huang backpedaled on a $100 million deal, and all of that came to reality. Business model and way of doing things, and are expressing and showing hesitation. They're in too deep in this investment for them to pull out. Now they have to make OpenAI work because of how much they've put into OpenAI, how many deals they've made, and how much money they've invested. Yes, for future prospects.
They do, Earl. What are you into?
Have a deal with OpenAI before OpenAI could pay for that $300 billion deal they needed from companies like NVIDIA, with NVIDIA having pulled a $100 billion deal and only $20 billion. How the deal is OpenAI's ability to fulfill the $300 billion transaction in jeopardy. So Oracle is now forced to expand their operations and spend money on expanding their operations to meet OpenAI's needs. With less of a guarantee that they'll receive that $300 billion in the course of 5 years because NVIDIA pulled down on their $100 billion deal and giving fewer years as they initially wanted. And all the while, OpenAI continues to grow the company and not getting investment at a high volume and rate for them to be able to meet all the costs that they have to deal with. Things like Oracle to raise money by doing debt, in order to weather out the current state of things. All companies indicate that not everything is okay behind the scenes with these companies all involved. I mentioned the company come out and try to pretend like everything's okay. It's just seems like everyone's laughter. They don't really pretend to delude the masters and themselves. So it's just chaos behind the scenes. This is what NVIDIA is investing in, and this is what they're doing consumers over. This is why they decided to, instead of like the consistent route of the business that has been them, with the consumers who are consistently buying their GPUs, they decided to save all of their money and all of their future into OpenAI and its success. Because in their investments and on their investments, Oracle having to react to that by,
type infrastructure that OpenAI and NVIDIA and Oracle are engaged in. We're standing by the concept here who put it as follows. The circular financial structure is simple.
Hello, this is Shanoa. Now, regarding your question, you want to know if there will be any positive changes going forward and this other person realizing your worth. And you also want to know if he'll reach out to you in March. Going by your cards, the Lovers being the primary card shows that he does seem to recognize something worthwhile in you. However, Four of Cups, especially with it being in the middle position, shows that there is something that's giving him pause, something that makes him want to sit and wait and think it over. It seems as though he's also keeping an eye on something before he says anything decisive. Five of Cups being in the final position shows that as far as him messaging you, it will be heavily delayed. So it's looking towards late March or early April as to when he will reach out to you. If you'd like further information regarding what to expect from this person in the future, as well as your compatibility with each other, or any future problems that may arise between the two of you, you can give me a call or send me a message.
NVIDIA's prospects for adding this AI gamble even worse is how much competition is catching up. So, for example, it's been reported that Google has recently been working on their own chip. The thing that Google has that OpenAI doesn't is that everything with Google is in-house. They're both NVIDIA and OpenAI. Does that make sense? OpenAI needs NVIDIA and other companies to be the chip manufacturers. Google both has the AI infrastructure and also can make in-house chips that are specifically designed for AI inference. Chips that are good at running PyTorch, the world's most widely used AI software framework. With this new initiative that Google's got going on called Torch TPU, which aims to remove a barrier that has slowed adoption of TPU chips by making them fully compatible and developer-friendly for customers who have already built their tech infrastructure using PyTorch software. So not only does Google have everything in-house, their chips are better for AI, whereas OpenAI has to rely on NVIDIA and companies like Oracle. And with NVIDIA in particular, their chips aren't as AI tailored as, Google stuff is, their TPUs. And that's allowed Google to catch up tremendously with Gemini 3, which is encroaching on OpenAI's market share. If you look at AI market share data right now, you can see that OpenAI's market share is very quickly going to diminish as Google's Gemini is very quickly catching up. It's not just that OpenAI, a startup, is bleeding as much money as it is. It's also that the technology itself is falling behind and its market share is starting to diminish. And NVIDIA is hoping that by investing in OpenAI, they can spruce up OpenAI and make it competitive with the likes of Google, Gemini, and other competitors who are also gaining more market share. But with NVIDIA's chips not being as tailored for AI inference as Google's TPUs are, in the long term, their investment ultimately may be or not. It may ultimately not yield the results that they want. NVIDIA may very well be backing the wrong horse in their desperation to have market dominance over, being the main supplier of AI chips. But plenty of other companies are just like making their own and deciding to not rely on the likes of NVIDIA. Literally, in this article from the Motley Fool, it highlights all the competition that NVIDIA and OpenAI in turn are facing with Meta, Microsoft, Amazon, and Alphabet, Google's company, all making their own AI chips so that they're not reliant on the likes of NVIDIA. So for all the ways in which NVIDIA is screwing over consumers by essentially lessening the supply of GPUs and causing inflation in the price of GPUs, not only are they backing a technology that right now does not feel all that beneficial in most of the ways that it's used, not only are they investing in technology.
Hey. What's going on? Yeah. Yeah. So you want to know. It's less about another woman, more about his lifestyle and what his choice would. Yes, exactly. Yes. He will kind of have a realization, but I don't think he's going to have it in time. He's someone who kind of has to lose something before he really gets the message. So what will you do? Yeah, you're doing the right thing. It's definitely working. Keep holding your standards. What are you going to do when he reaches out? Yeah, I think it's going to pay off really well for you. Just keep at it. Was there anything else that was on your mind? You're welcome. Bye.
An athlete, a sled mover, a mechanic, just all those hats.
We're actually not doing a quick run anymore. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, my warm up is the most important part of the day. My warm up is what really puts my mental headspace in the space ready to hurl myself down this mountain at like 85 miles an hour.
Damn, I'm good.
My last workout of the day is a weightlifting workout. Just trying to stay healthy and making sure that my body is at its absolute best and ready to perform every day is one of my favorite things.
I'm about to get fucked. Right in my butthole. Parentified good kids.
Dear listener, this is still Domino's best deal ever. I mean, it's the only deal that gets you any Domino's pizza with any toppings. It's just $9.99.
You're saving $20. Says save like $32.89.
Oh yeah? Oh. No.
Can we still close on time? Oh, I know a lender who can help. Will it clear on schedule? Great. Ready? Dad, I don't need you, Jeff. I still love you. Wow. I just want to help.
Hey, let's go. Hey there, The kid's funny rooster? It can kind of like my character. That's something all the parents have actually heard of. Nice washboard. This is college. You can be the rooster if you want. Crazy rooster! I'm gonna crash it! No, Rino, porque no le está gustando nada la presión, tiene que seguir adelante, Gantz de los TX, y Zuru sigue presionando, que tiene miedo.
Sí, se nota ahí los nervios de parte del Rino, que se le está complicando. No hemos visto de momento el soneo. Ya sabemos que Chizuru tal vez no es el match favorable para el Caveman. Está abusando bastante bien ahí el largo de la oportunidad. Ahí tiene la inversión de los Sunset Strike. Aplana botón Rino. La inversión de Level 1. La confirmación para dejarlo ya de esquina. No decide girar. Está en una situación bastante difícil. Aquí el Rino intenta el trozo. Tiene el intercambio de daño. Ya nos vamos al último personaje de Rino, frijolito.
Ay, Rino, se le está complicando.
Go Reno, go Reno, go. Go Reno, go Reno.
Ahí está, le va a invertir la doble porque presiona mucho. No, con uno va a ser suficiente. Sí, con uno, mi rey. Ay, hasta los ojos.
The sun's fine.
You'll find a solution.
Oh, no solution.
Que sabemos que pocas entradas que puede tener, pero ahí tiene la primera oportunidad el Rino y hasta en counter decide únicamente ahí el level 1, veamos si decide hacer la confirmación con Climax, igualmente puede quedar haciendo bastante daño, pero prefiere dejarlo para hacer tal vez el quick mode, ahí ya un poquito menos del 55% de la vida de parte del Alba C, lo va a tener bastante complicado ahora con la Silvi, ahí tratando ahí de tomar la distancia, los golpes por abajo, no termina haciendo nada más, ahí tomando el control del escenario el Rino con las patadas que tienen muchísima prioridad. Y ahí se viene la inversión del quick mode que estaba hablando, termina dropeándose en la gestión de recursos, tal vez no fue la correcta, veamos cómo la oportunidad aprovechando el GTX para dejarlo ya menos del 55% de la vida, lo tiene bastante complicado en este momento Rino, se le nota que está algo nervioso, que no es que tenga miedo, pero que ahí lo está tomando con mucho cuidado, menos de 23 segundos en el marcador en estos momentos, ahí la patada por abajo, lo lleva a la esquina, el round up, equivocado, lo va a tener aprovechando el Alba C, y con el PvP, el Alba C le saca el primer punto al Rino.
No puede ser. Lo esperó súper paciente. Alba Rino, como tú decías, empezaba a desesperar, gastaba los recursos de manera errónea y le terminó costando todo porque tiene la agarre hacia enfrente, no llega, confirma con todo y gancho ahí algo para llevárselo. Y ahora, o quiere la segunda victoria, el Rino no se va a dejar. Van con todo. Opa. Le está jugando bien, me mete la esquina. Ay, no tiene cómo salirse, ni siquiera Barras intenta con el brinco la rodada. Está desesperando mi red, cuidado con Benny Maru.
Sí, se está viendo en un momento ahí, para el Rino más agresivo, pero ahí sí no lo alcanza, le pasa el Alba C, ahí lanza el BTX, que lo va a terminar aprovechando el Alba C. Ojito que quiere proclamándose nuevamente campeón, por ahí el Alba C, pero ahora se está aprovechando bastante bien el Rino, ya no deja a la vida y con esa conexión por arriba, nos vamos al segundo personaje del Alba C, a ver qué nos demuestra ahora con el Chizuru, frijolito.
Una presión excelente. La de la Chizuru contra los Jacks, contra el Jacks de Rino. Veíamos cómo lo bloqueaba, pero ahora Rino confirma con el level 1. Intenta hacer la óptima del Crota, otro Crota, pero ese no alcanza a conectar nada. Buen encontro aéreo por parte de Chizuru. Que deja a Rino en un espacio, buena la sombra que no es sombra, va para adelante. ¿Dónde quedaba la bolita? En el mismo lado, echando el fuerte para que la agarre, haga de las suyas. Rino ahí, lo regresan a la esquina, mi red, y lo vuelve a contestar con la misma. Esta película ya la vimos, Red.
Sí, le está volviendo a hacer las mismas. A ver cómo lo maneja el Alba C, que otra vez por el control del escenario. Ojito, que dónde quedó. Sí, alcanzó a cubrirse bastante bien por ahí el Alba C, pero esta vez ahí terminó el level 1. Puede puede ser casi suficiente, pero no decirse suficiente, obligó a hacer el War Cancel a plana botón, y ahora sí el Rhino tiene la ventaja, frijolito.
Buena, Rhino. Se puede aventar el OCB. Lo está buscando. Va a continuar con la presión. Excelente. No le gustó nada lo que pasó anteriormente. Intentaba el cross-up ahí muy bien, Silvio, pero no conectaba. Está jugando al rango. Sabe que tiene la ventaja. No hay necesidad de buscarle a jugar más. Y buena el brinco corto por parte de Rhino. Cualquier tipo de daño que saque esta ventaja. Level 1 para dejarlo en la esquina. Remate óptimo. Una entradita más. Aunque no tiene barras. Cuidado. Se la puede llevar aquí. Ay, contenta con una patada baja. Excelente por parte de Silvi.
Y difícilmente alcanzó a darle la vuelta, pero ahora sí tiene la ventaja. Tal vez el Heiren por el tema del torneo de los proyectiles, que sabemos que tiene muy buena distancia, pero él lo hace con toda la confianza, decide acercarse rápidamente para tener la oportunidad del Rhino. Le quedó bastante lejos, alcanza a conectar con los Soft. Y ahora sí pone 1-1 el marcador. Esta vez sí se notó el Rhino con más confianza, con tantos nervios, que pues ahora sí sacó la ventaja, frijolito.
Dominante completamente, dice la que me hiciste ahorita, no me la vuelves a hacer. Es más, te la repito y te la duplico la dosis. Ahora nos vamos a tomar un respiro, mi res, acá en la selección de personajes. Vamos a ver qué tipo de cambio quiere hacer el queridísimo Alba C. Mira, Luis.
Y personaje bastante bueno para poder contrarrestar al Yashiro, que ya sabemos que muchos de sus saltos terminan en safe tune porque son pues bastante rápidos, y tal vez los predicts que salen ahí en menos de 2 frames, un frame para ser exacto, le va a terminar pues sirviendo para contrarrestar. Ya saben que no siempre es sacar los personajes más fuertes, cada uno tiene sus debilidades. Aquí lo puede terminar aprovechando bien el Lando AC con el Phil Howard. Y ahora sí, vamos rápido, que ahí con los pataditas por abajo, estamos viendo que está tomando un poquito la...
Oh my god. Goddamn power, him.
Que ahí empezó con pues, algo de ventaja, y ahora sí el Rhino se está adaptando al estilo de juego que está teniendo ahí con el G, está tomando su distancia, nuevamente no alcanza a conectar el proyectil X, y al lado de los proyectiles, tremendo, alcanza a conectar por ahí, ya dejando al menos del 15% de la vida, le regresa el daño, la inversión del Monte Strike, decide girar hacia atrás. El Rhino no se arriesgó a hacer nada más con ganar botón por ahí, nuevamente sin menos del 10% de la vida, menos del 18% del marcador. Veamos quién lo va a terminar aprovechando de la mejor manera. Ahí castiga la guardia con esta carre, y ojito porque el lado va a meter. Quiere ya la final, bonito.
Qué buena la que hizo ahí el Alba C, mi res, con ese. Le aplicó la cojera, compadre. La cojera tal cual, todo y así nomás. La que menos te espera, bien con la patada larga, la patada donde que ahora lo va a dejar en la esquina, no puede rodarse. Se levanta macheando el seco con los campeones, Rhino, claro que sí. Le sale buenísimo, buena paciente, lo espera. Y eso le va a dar buena vida porque el reloj terminaba con 47 segundos. Casi termina en 150 de vida, le faltaron para llenarse la barra completa. Y ahora Chizurba, que viene al campo, mi res.
Y otra vez con el control excelente desde el escenario. Recuerden que no es un match favorable aquí para el Heilen, porque no puedes ya, porque puede regresar rápido. Ahí lo intenta, pero subir directamente al momento, ahí hablando del tema de los proyectiles. Se puede regresar rápidamente. Tiene el button strike, termina activando, se deja caer con el igual, chinga. La recuperación de vida nuevamente por ahí. Y otra vez tratando de pegar por ahí, otra vez. Poquito. La guardia, el 50-50, los golpes por arriba, para ir poquito a poquito bajando la guardia, tomando distancia, el Rhino buscando la oportunidad, le queda bastante ritmo,
Hello, this is Shanoa. Now, regarding your question, you want to know if Jeremiah will ask you to marry him while he's incarcerated. And you also want to know if he really loves you like he says he does. The Hanged Man from your reading in the primary position indicates that due to recent events and future events, it will really change his perspective that he's had in life. It seems that he used to have a certain way of viewing things and how he wanted to live, but it seems like because of things that have happened and his upcoming or current incarceration, that it has forced him to turn a new page in his mindset. The Knight of Wands being in the center position shows that it does seem like he will go ahead and ask you to marry him. As far as his intentions go, Ace of Swords is a good indicator following the Knight of Wands because it does show that his words are matching his mental energy. So, for him to say that he loves you does mean that he's genuine. I know he probably was very different before everything that started happening, but I do think, ironically, that even though he's not in the best place right now, it has done something good for him. So I think you should take him at his word and expect some form of proposal from him. Now, if you want further details about what to expect between the two of you in the future, as well as any other problems that might arise between the two of you, you can give me a call or send me a message.
Quedaba comiéndose el daño de Rino, lo metían a la esquina, pero no se desesperaba, tenía las 3 barras, él sabía que solo necesitaba el débil. Él estaba esperando el débil, por eso se gastó el Gar Cancel, e invirtió una barra en quitarse la presión porque buscaba el débil. Rino termina dando un brinco que no fue óptimo y lo cacha con la patada del lo que termina culminando en la victoria para el señor Albacete. Mi res. Macherino e finalización Macherino porque pasa la puerta y cuando regresamos después de 7 personas jugamos allá en Twitch, pues ya somos casi ¿cómo no? Gracias a todos. Aquí disfrutar. Paseando acá por la morada. Muchísimas gracias. Pasando por el chat. Los códigos de Macherino son gratis, cambiarlos. Y efectivamente son gratis. Pero ya llevarse y se lo deja campeón. Tiempo no les cuesta nada, quedan únicamente por ahí 10 códigos están mencionando el Alejandro por ahí en Facebook, por si hay ahí a toda la gente pasar por 40 70 niño uy, Jeremy asesina. Se viene tirazo. De las que en verdad te marean. No sabes ni dónde quedó. Izquierda, derecha, te vuelve a tirar. Izquierda, derecha. ¿Dónde estaba? Bueno, va a ser un rato que no veo. Y ya está jugando. A ver si apunta una nueva estrategia de llegar un poco más lejos que la vez pasada. Ojo, creo que me atropó. Hágame un poquito de procesado ahí. Oye, hola, que eso sea algo rico y diferente para él. Medicina. Esta noche controvertida medicina, pero nada de nada más en la tiene. Al final de cuentas, los personajes son el estilo de juego que va a tener cada vamos a iniciar con la dinámica. Gente, saquen las dinámicas. Postemos los puntos. Vengan de palabra morada para que empezar a darle sabor. Este batalla. Le podamos poner a todos unos 5 cada puntos. Una cuestita de sabor también a los combates, el apoyo de los jugadores que están viendo pues el directo, quién es su favorito, a ver quién pues para que no se pierda de una de las grandes batallas salvajes. El señor Mal. Grande, grande, grande. Claro. Tenemos. Ahora sí, mira. Viene agarrando de manera excelente. Otro agarre más. Y fuerzas de contar por abajo. Termina rodando para salir de ahí. ¿Quieres alcanzar? Te reciben. Y te están diciendo, así tú bien, siempre se tira. Está gustando bastante, pero está haciendo sensitiva al mantenerse a la raya un poquito más hacia atrás, comenzando a desesperar al oponente, está buscando un brinco bastante. ¡Ay, cuidado, no toques, dale! Termina el poquito en la esquina. Hay que mucho más digo, para poder hacer la porque no puede ser ¿dónde quedaba? Ahí están las afueras. ¿Quién ya? Compadre, échale más para toda la raza que puedan cobrar, ahí está. ¿Quién gana? ¿Quién se la lleva la tradición? Vamos. Mientras tanto, claro, ¿no? Desde la esquina a la cena de la fiesta de cocina que intentaba hacerlo, o sea, pero no le sale, lo termina mejor y vuelve a meter otra vez a la esquina. La presión termina gastando el garca, pero no tiene que sentir la presión. Buenas las patadas. Aquí le... Buena la que está haciendo. Ahí está todo. Métale, pero por pues, desactivas, aprovechen para hacer las predicciones, métale los puntos de activo de las uñas. La conquista con la cara donde no va a ser suficiente. Simplemente para hacer un poquito más de daño. Se gastaba el buena la patada del largo por parte de Dolores. Pone la cabeza. Jonathan dice 3,000 al Veo los agarres de León haciendo de las suyas. Pero aún así no pasa nada. No, tira una pasada aérea, por lo que no. con la leona presentísima. Estuvo presionando todo en la segunda batalla, la primera se la llevó. Háblame ese a Crunch 840, porque mire, hubieron 8,400. Maestrazo de las predicciones, de tremendo Nostradamus debería llamarse. Con un punto, digo, con un punto. Y me van a pellizcar. Ahora ya me veo mi raza. Se abre la que sigue. Albaceo, mano, métale. Y esta sí está difícil, ¿eh? ¿A quién le vamos a meter? ¿A quién le vamos a meter? ¿Será que Albaceo se lleva todos los puntos? Ya está la predicción vigente. Ya está la predicción. Métele, Crunch, métele. Pero que no sea ni un punto. Que no sea de un punto. Mínimo de 2000. Mínimo de 2000. Mientras tanto, platicando las apuestas, acá está. Otra tremenda Kelly haciendo de las suyas. Tenemos al Manu Croft conectar el Rota. Y todo el combo entero, el remate no va a ser suficiente, le falta muy poquita vida, lo deja ahí con un hemorroide, sufriendo, sangrando, llorando, y lo confirma, termina con su sufrimiento de 2 patadas por ahora. Ahora viene la Shizuru de Albaceo. Perfecto. Repito. El counter que consigue, bueno, el agarre, cualquier daño que esté sacando aquí es ventaja. Y ahora va a ser mucha más ventaja. Porque el reloj acaba de llegar a los 39 segundos y bajando con 48 menos vida lo que va a recuperar esta Chikuru en estos momentos. ¿Te parece bien? 50,000, me parece perfecto. Es más, yo también le hago todo por échele. Me parece perfecto mi pronto y a Tuki dice, no importa que me hayas negado, no importa que me hayas maldecido, yo así voy a seguir presionando. Va de nuevo, intenta. El lazo para atrás haciéndose las días. Importante ahí de Manucop con esa Blue Mary dándole pero con todo. Para Albaceo. Agresiva, estuvimos viendo ojito, y toman el espacio, comienzan a bailar. Pensaba que le iban a cruzar, pero la termina haciendo un brinco corto. El se pega porque está tocando cuando no debes, cochino. Termina tocando botón cuando no debe estar tocando y te lo lees muy bien ahí al bate con eso. Silvi, termina llevando la vida de promedio y ahora el día siguiente te está presionando. Empieza golpe, patada, entraba en el counter. ¡Ah, canijo! Brincaba como corrió de izquierda a derecha, pero no atinaba la mordida y el conejo nomás lo miraba pasar. Ahora es quien está tomando la distancia. No tiene balas, no tiene mucho que arriesgar, así que tranquilo, despacio, ve llenando. Oye, pensaba que iba a tirar el gancho, no alcanza a reaccionar. Se vuelve una fiesta de ataques aéreos, misiles aéreos. Y así en la segunda barra. Ahora sí, va a empezar a presionar. Empieza. Tiene la barra igual de millones. No te vayas para atrás. No te vayas para atrás. Nada más estás secándolo. Cuidado. Y él igual sabe que tiene la ventaja de velocidad, por lo que pues, no se le espera salir hacia adelante. Tiene que ser que con poder de velocidad se puede igualar las cosas. Nada más se vio ahí el rock, pero no se alcanzó a ver el agarre hacia el frente y esto le termina saliendo contraproducente. Tenía que ir hacia adelante, Álvaro, tenía que ir adelante la barra. El Yachi no estaba a nada de romperse, a nada. No te puedes confiar así contra un Yachi. Tiene 4 barras, porque vas a utilizarlas todas, compadre. Muchísimas gracias al señor Asher.
Water's running smoothly. Turning slow. Suck against that. He likes to go for the He'll give you credit for the hook there.
Did we get the tiki bar?
Buen Cooper, le dice el nuevo Git. Intenta, por arriba, la pega. Buena, la agarre. Tómala, tómala. Flojito. Ah, buena, lo termina correteando de aquí a Paquito. Qué lindo. Sabía que te iba a rodar, sabía que te iba a rodar. Le termina haciendo la jugada y vamos, yo sé que vas a correr para acá. Venga, algo bien. Sellado. Lo quiere dejar en esquina muy bien la strike para quedar positivo el counter que le sale contraproducente. Otra vez. Le brinca y luego termina confirmando, lo tiene que corretear. Lo tiene que corretear. Pinball, le dice pinball. Qué buena la presión. La vimos ustedes porque el juego y ahora otra vez. No decide meter un poquito más, sabe que tiene la ventaja, mucha vida, está nada más a un toque. Ya que chip damage que es óptimo. Chip damage que es óptimo para llevarte la vida y bueno, viene el sitio. Podrá conseguirlo. ¿Será que se lo puede llevar? Ay, no se logra ver. Termina con todo. Ya yo quiero. Buena rodada, la derecha de esquina, un juego rápido. Tiene barras de sobra. Así que convierte una en lugar de antes. Simplemente para salir de la posición. Para atrás, toma el nuevo aire. Órale, poco a poco, desgástalo. Beso a beso. Que no se tronó, no se tronó. No se tronó, decide no invertir más barras de la que está invirtiendo ahora. Es Blue Perry, como no, del señor Manuco. Toma la doble grado, Y qué buena la que está haciendo ahora, ¿eh? Excelente. 2-0 con las cosas. Muy bien, señor Manuco. Llevándose. A ver, Troncha, ¿a quién le apostaste ahora esos 50,000? ¿A quién le apostaste ahora esos 50,000? ¿Cuánto te llevaste, Cross? ¿Cuánto te llevaste? Cuéntanos. ¿Cuánto te llevaste? ¿Te pusiste macizo o no? Cuéntanos, mi queridísimo Front. Así es, compadre. Maestro Manuco, y ganó el maestro Manuco. Hombre, el Crunch anda pero macizo. ¿Qué será posible? Haga la predicción. Todavía parece que queda una batalla más, ¿no? Queda una batalla más. Sí. Correcto. Va ganando, sí. ¿Le metiste 3,000? Algo bien. Ahí ya no se estaba presionando. Buena respuesta del maestro Manuco, saliéndose de la presión. Empieza a rodar y brincar hacia atrás. El salta patadas. Uy, intenta con los juegos. Regresando el orden. Bien, las jugadas de cambiar el orden a los 7. Está contestando muy bien los ataques de Shelby, pero ahora Shelby le abre una jugada. ¿Dónde lo ves, compadre? ¿Dónde lo ves? No puedes. Está canijo. Buena,